The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
1420 Sports Bar Podcast. More beer and sports talk and a whole lot more. Join host Brent Radlinsky as he bellies up to the bar and gets the conversations going that'll make you think you're sitting in your local watering hole. It's sports, beer, and shenanigans. So sit back, grab a few beers, and let's get in. All right, 1420 Sports Bar Podcast, the morning shift, number 2. Today's show, as always, brought to you by SeatGeek.com, the SeatGeek app. Use promo code BELLYUP at SeatGeek.com today and save yourself $20 on your first purchase. Remember, we are part of the Belly Up Media Network. Go to BellyUpSports.com for all their great articles and other podcasts as well. And Aaron, let's Tuesday morning, got a day off to think about what happened in the Super Bowl. You actually probably had half the night on Sunday to not really put too much thought into that game, but if fly, Eagles, fly. Your Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions.
Yeah, pretty cool, man. Pretty cool. I can't sugarcoat it. I was pleasantly surprised. I was actually shocked, to be honest with you. I picked it 33-30 Eagles. I mean, I thought it would be, back and forth and down to the wire. And yeah, I mean, the Eagles defense was the thing I was most optimistic about going into this game. And the fact they shut, Saquon really didn't do that much. And the fact that, Hurts in the passing game did what they did. I couldn't have scripted it better for my Eagles there. But yeah, it was surreal. I mean, I didn't think they could beat them that handily. I just didn't think that was in the cards. So,
no, I was quite shocked, but then you look back on it, and then actually me and Deanne were at the local watering hole having a couple for the first quarter and a half, a little bit there, and then it was basically over early. Early in the first quarter, you kind of had the feeling that this isn't going to go well for the Chiefs. It's just the way the Eagles were swarming Mahomes, and they couldn't get anything going, no matter what the Eagles did on offense. It was over early. Did that did you get that feeling, or were you thinking, oh man, it was the Atlanta Falcons had a 24-3 lead over the New England Patriots a few years back? Was there any doubts, even at the half for you as an Eagles fan, at 24-0, you're like, this is still Patrick Mahomes, this one isn't over? Or were you cracking a beer or whatever it might be and saying this one's over, man?
No, I'm always the type of person where I'm like, it's not over till the clock hits zero. Once I think it was 34. I don't know if it was 34-0 or 34-6 or something like that. Once they were up more than 4 scores, I felt pretty good. But even at 3 scores, I mean, it's I just thought Mahomes would find a way to maybe climb back and make it interesting at the very least. But no, I'm not the type of person where I'm like, man, this is over, because if you watch Philadelphia sports enough, I mean, you see them blow. The Phillies blew a 7-0 lead in the 9th inning to the Mets. So I've seen it all. I mean, so I was optimistic. I was feeling good, but I was like, we got a whole half to play. I was not saying this is over before it got really out of hand. I just was like, you never know. It just. Really, the defense, if the defense wasn't, was to go away, you never know what Mahomes could do. It's just, no quarterback can have success when you're getting blitzed, or, they were only rushing four guys and he had no time to throw and things like that. But I never catch him, or I never count them before they hatch, I should say, because man, that 28-3, I'll never forget that one either. But with the Pats back in, quite a few years ago.
Even at 24-0, not saying, okay, the Chiefs are getting the ball back after the halftime show, and we'll talk about that in half a minute. But it's you start doing some math, become a mathematician in your head. And I've always said, if you got to become a mathematician at any point in your team's season or during a game, your team's probably screwed. But it's just kind of the way it is. When it was 20-24, but I go, okay, well, let's say they get a touchdown, put up a 2-point conversion, then maybe a turnover, all since a one-score game, and it never turned out that way. This was it turns out this was, and it's not to put in kind of a wet blanket over your teams to win the Super Bowl, because when your team wins, there's a no better feeling to. Well, there's a couple, but I can't mention here on the PG show at 7:54 in the morning on a Tuesday. But you just it's kind of like, okay, well, this one's over, and it's just like looking back, do you kind of wish that maybe, just maybe, the game was closer, or do you like, just to get a little more satisfaction, a little bit of a nail biter, or you're like, okay, it's all like, where was the fun factor for you as a fan?
It was like, we're throwing high fives around, and it's like it almost felt too good to be true, which was weird. I'm not used to that feeling. It was like an uncomfortable feeling, only because I'm not used to being there emotionally with any team that I watch. So, I mean, I'll take it. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm, there's part of me that wishes, hey, it comes down to the last play or something like that. Sure. But I've been a part of so many of those that it was kind of nice to beat a team like this. Now, everybody's still, my friends that I have that are fans of like the Giants and stuff like that, they're still giving, okay, now you need to win more, now you only have 2. So now, it's always something to kind of get clowned on, but I'll take it, because I can step away and say, we beat the crap out of, the best quarterback in the league. So it's like, there's bragging rights involved, but from an aesthetic standpoint, like just watching the game, yeah, it had its like kind of dull moments. I thought in the second half it was kind of like a snoozer a little bit, but it's when you can dominate a team like that in the Super Bowl, I'm never going to complain about it. Just, it was a little bit, it wasn't like so many fireworks. It was one-sided. So I like to see it, but I don't love to see, it's two here. One in the hand, one in the bush. Like, it is what it is. I'm okay with it.
It's funny you bring up your buddies who are fans of different teams. They can't just let you. They can't just shut up and just let you have one. Like, it's always
No,
something. Like,
no.
yeah, okay, we just won it like 3 minutes ago, and like, yeah, but's live in the woods, man. Like, who cares? Like, just let me have this for a week. Like, just at least give me to the parade, and then we'll start talking about next year or years gone by. But at least give me at the very least, give me a little bit of a chance to enjoy it. Like, was this game, and like, it's a historical beating, and a team that was going for a something that's never been done in the Super Bowl, so 3 in a row, and being a part of the upper echelon. You can't take what they've done in the past on them, but this kind of puts a bit of a damper on things a little bit. And people are gonna say, well, they've already won, but when you get your ass kicked like this, like, people can't put that. Like, people are kind of saying, well, they have 3 and 5 or whatever it was, and you can't really take. Well, I think the opposite. When you get destroyed like this, like, you can't just keep giving. I listened to Jim show this morning on my way to work, Fan in the Van podcast. Make sure you guys check that out, wherever it is you get your podcast. But like, you can't just diminish the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs got their asses handed to them, and this can't be just, oh, well, it happens. It can't, like, the media and fans and everybody else can say, man, oh man, like, this was an ass kicking of historic proportions.
No, absolutely. And then you go back, the other Super Bowl they lost to Brady. It kind of played out similarly, in the fact that, like, they just got annihilated at the offensive line. Like, the defensive line just ate Kansas City alive. I remember they had guys out in the O-line, and that, they were banged up, and this year they were a lot more healthy in that front. But same thing though. They just got dismantled in that. Like, I think it was 30-9 or something like that. The final score. So both Super Bowls they've lost, they've gotten kind of wiped off the field. And even if you look at this score, I'm not going to like sit here and say, oh, the score wasn't the score, but it 40-22 sounds closer than it felt. They threw that kind of garbage time touchdown. And I think, the Eagles had second teamers in there, so they kind of, let their foot off the gas to a certain degree. But yeah, I agree with you. I think to a certain point, when you get dominated in that aspect, it's a little bit like, yeah, they're still an elite team, and it's been a dynasty, but it's being dominated in the Super Bowl is just a bad look. You expect the Super Bowl to be like a nail biter, or at least a close game, competitive game, and when you're not competitive, it does take a little bit out of that, and it exactly was that. So everybody's saying, they were trying to do something that no one's done before. I get that, but it's the way it looked, right? It's the way, if it was a close game, they lose a close game. I don't think anybody's, okay, nobody's done it before, but it was, they got wiped off the field. So,
I think it was during halftime, Gronkowski, that great big brain that he has. He remembered that far back. I can't believe he could remember that far back. But he was basically saying the same thing you just did about how the Tampa Bay dominated them. The offensive line took over, or the defense took over, making Mahomes run and on and on. And he was saying the exact same thing you just did. And then you get thinking when the game's over, and we're sitting here talking this morning that why don't more teams just do that? Like to win as much as they have in the past, there has to be. Let's not say that Gronkowski's the smartest man in the room, because he's not, and you and I probably aren't the smartest men when it comes to football in the room, or maybe we are. But why don't more teams just do that? Like put the pressure on, and just because if that's the formula, then that's the formula. They've only lost X amount of games over the years, and seriously, a handful of games in the last 3 or 4 years. So why don't more teams just do that, or does it just come down to the thing there's just not enough talent on the opposition teams?
Yeah, I think it's tough. I mean, you can get pressure on Mahomes and he can still do well. It's just like you have to get, enormous pressure. And that's the thing that kind of surprised me about the Eagles all year. They don't really have like big name guys on that D line other than Carter. He didn't do he commands so much attention that the other guys kind of get freed up, but they don't have that's the thing. I coming into this year, I was like, the defensive line, I don't know, because and in the Super Bowl they only rushed 4. It's not like they were bringing massive blitzes. So the goal obviously is to get to even Brady back in the day. If you could get, if you can get pressure on anybody consistently, they're gonna have a tough day at the office. And I agree with you. I mean, it's easier said than done. That's one of those things you try and have it, and if you have it, you're competitive. If you don't have it, your defensive backs and linebackers, you're kind of leaving them out to dry to a certain degree if you don't get pressure. So especially against a guy like Mahomes, he'll find people and he'll scramble out and make people open. But yeah, I totally agree with you. That's the recipe for success, is getting pressure and getting, the offensive line, defensive line, that's a huge thing.
Does that Super Bowl just show you that there is such a huge disparity gap in the NFL, and it's all sports? We've talked about a time or two in the past, but that there is such a huge disparity that if the Eagles can kick the living crap out of one of the greatest teams of all time, there's players that move around free agency, retire, or whatever it might be. But if the Eagles can take a team like that's on the verge of history and just dismantle them, what hope in hell do the Jacksonville Jaguars have? What hope in hell do let's throw another team out there, Chicago Bears, whoever you want. They have absolutely zero chance of winning this year, next year, the year after. They zero chance.
Yeah, no, it's tough. I think in the NFC it's a little bit more wide. I'm not going to say the Bears are going to do it because I don't trust the franchise, right? It's you look at they're like the Pittsburgh Pirates in baseball. When are they going to figure it out? It's almost like one of those situations. They've screwed up so many things that it's hard to trust in. I know they're bringing in a new coach from the Lions there, but it's I think football might be a little easier than baseball, only because you get a new coach, you get a new quarterback, like you saw what the Texans could do. But now the Texans, they go to the playoffs and lose. Where have they hit their ceiling already? That's the thing. It's hard to. I think the NFL, you can turn it around and make a playoff run, because how we talk about it, how many 10-7 and 9-8 teams sneak in and find a way. But to get to that. I mean, look how long Baltimore's been trying to do it with Lamar. Look at Buffalo knocking on the doorstep every year. I'm not saying they can't ever do it, because there were questions, can Jalen Hurts win a Super Bowl for you? So it can happen. It's just like you said. I mean, if you're talking these bottom feeder teams, you almost have to get pretty lucky. You have to hit on a coach and a quarterback, or at least one of the two, to be okay. And then even if you're okay, when's the last okay team we saw, make the Super Bowl? It just doesn't really happen. The Giants used to do it, with Eli, but they had Eli, but it was they snuck in 9-7 and they go on a magical run. So no, I'm with you. It's tough. If you're in that, I mean, I've seen the Eagles in that bottom feeder period of time, and you have to almost like pray that you hit on a quarterback. Like because if you don't have a good quarterback nowadays, you can't do much. You can't.
Let's talk about that. It's funny, like Josh Allen won himself an MVP this week, and to me, the MVP awards, postseason awards, a great big bag of who gives it a toot, whatever. But he wins. What right on? Like here's a thing to put on your plaque if you don't go to Canton or whatever it might be. To me, and this is just me speaking out loud. This isn't for clickbait or anything else, but the Jalen Hurts, who just won himself Super Bowl, been to 2. Who would you rather have? A guy who's come close. It's not all the quarterback's fault, but it's a quarterback-driven league, like you were just saying. That if you don't have one, Hurts has one, right? And you can't take that away from him. And it's not Josh Allen's fault, but or is it Josh Allen's fault? He couldn't get the team over the hump. And so, like, right now, you can't. If both quarterbacks' careers were to end tomorrow for whatever reason, who's got a more decorated career?
Yeah,
who?
yeah.
And I don't think it's disputable.
Right.
And Lamar Jackson, same thing. It's not disputable. Yeah, you run up against a guy in the AFC, but you know what? You can say, well, I just beat that guy. So who's got a more decorated career? And this isn't for clickbait at all. This is just facts. Winning surmounts everything. You could pad stats and you could put up 50 against some bad teams in the regular season. Nobody cares. You got to go and win one, and Hurts has one. You can't take that away from him. And I think that gets lost in the Eli Manning shuffle, like you brought him up for not getting in the Hall of Fame, which he didn't have great numbers in the regular season. But you know what? You win 2. Not many guys have done that.
Absolutely. It's tough because it's like the ultimate team game, and I'm not gonna say like some of these guys like. Are there guys more talented than Jalen Hurts? Absolutely. Lamar, you can make the case is more talented from especially from a running standpoint. I mean, passing, he there's questions I always kind of ask because he kind of goes away in the playoffs, and this year he puts them in position, but those 2 turnovers he had early, I mean, you look at that kind of comes back to bite him. Like it's like I never thought Hurts, like I've never been in love with Jalen Hurts from a all the way around standpoint, but he's a winner. Like that's the thing. Like the guy just wins, and you can say, oh, he's got the one of the best receiving core. He's got an amazing O-line. That's not his fault though. Like that's where he's at. It's his position, right? And he has to maximize his position, just like these other guys, like Josh Allen. They have to maximize their position. It really is put up or shut up at some point because people will make oh well, Lamar doesn't have this or Josh Allen doesn't have that. I don't know what to like. I'm not even just saying this because the Eagles just won. I've been saying this like when Hurts lost, it was like, well, we didn't do enough, or he didn't do enough, or whatever. There's so much that goes into football. I think coaching and everything else. Like even the what's the environment like? Like we could look at Dallas and think, man, Dak Prescott's not a bad quarterback, but then. Is it because it's Jerry World and it's a circus that they're never going to win? Like, there's so much that goes into it, but yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, it's it's just excuses at some point because a guy finds a way to win and a guy finds a way to lose. Like look at the 49ers too. They've come close, but it's like why haven't they won? You just got to look at why not. At some point you have to look at that. So.
Yeah, like I'm not blaming the Bills' woes on Josh Allen by any means, but he hasn't got it done, and that's just plain and simple, and that's not anything but him. Like you got to score 3 more points, you got to have 1 less turnover, you got to have one, and the way the Eagles were able to dismantle an all-time team, and like that game, like it was a perfect storm for the Eagles. I think like they played really well, but on the other hand, the Chiefs played historically bad. You haven't seen that team put together 4 quarters in how long total? Like if you want accumulate all the games they won this season, that bad. And then for the Eagles to get lightning in a bottle and take advantage of the opportunities they did, and that's what they did because the Chiefs were just historically bad. They wouldn't have beat the Saskatchewan Roughriders this week in the way they played. It was terrible. Like they were terrible. That was one of the worst games one of the worst Super Bowls I've ever seen play. But they were historically bad. Like for a Super Bowl team, and so was it the Eagles really good, Chiefs really bad, or a combination of the two?
I think, I don't want to sound biased. I want to lean the Eagles just a little bit more good than the Chiefs bad, only because of like I've been harping all year on the like how good this defense is. Like I only say this because I haven't seen an Eagles defense like this since I was like in middle school, and I didn't even comprehend the game back then, like to the point I do now. So like in the 08 was probably the last, they had Jim Johnson as their defensive coordinator. That's all I remember. But outside of that, I mean, you're talking 15 years or so of just not good defense. Like even the Super Bowl they won against the Patriots, I mean, that came down to the last play. It was a Hail Mary from Brady there. So it's I want to say they got Mahomes off his spot so much that the fact that he threw 2 picks, I think he was flustered. I think he was just like either guys weren't open because of the defense was just covering him up, and he's forcing it. I mean, that pick 6 he threw was like both of them were just bad though. I mean, I will give you that like 100%. It's not like he forced the ball, between 2 guys. He almost like threw it to the Eagles. It was like, here you go. So yeah, I do lean the fact that the defense just was so good that Mahomes was so off his. I don't think he was prepared for that type of defense and them coming after him the way that I don't think he thought that was going to happen. But at the same rate, it triggered him to make mistakes and kind of mentally come unglued a little bit, which you don't see hardly at all. So combination, but I want to lean Eagles. But yeah, he looked uncharacteristically bad for sure.
Was that game in general production value for like we'll talk the halftime show, we'll get into that might as well. Like the blowout, all the stuff and the things that there were happening before and after and during, and then the game was a dud. And the NFL is bigger than anything else in the world. And we can't dispute that. But does a game like that kind of go, and people who are on the fringe, because I was sitting with some people who big football fans during the regular season because they play fantasy football, right? Huge, like they don't know who wins games or nothing, but they know who, like there's a bunch of younger people at this at the local watering hole, and they were, oh yeah. It's like who's playing here? They're like, they're fantasy football people, right? So does a game like that, does it kind of push the fringe fan away because it was, for all intent, it was a dud? And or is the NFL just so big it doesn't matter? People are going to watch no matter what, or is that just goes back to my thing all the time? Is it popular because it's popular and people are going to watch no matter what? Like how many eyeballs were actually watching that after halftime?
Yeah, I have like a mixed crowd of friends myself. Like some are like when their team's bad, like I have a good amount of Giants fans around me, and when their team's bad, they kind of tune out. But they still watch, but they're not like so. And then I have some guys that are hey, it's football, I'm gonna watch it no matter what. I think whenever, even if it's baseball, right? If it's like for us, we're talking like a 10-1 game, it's hard to fully tune in. You're scrolling your phone, you're doing whatever. Right? Yeah, chatting it up, drinking it up, just whatever. So I think, for the average football viewer, like casual, I think, that's a game where you're going to watch. I'm not going to say you're going to watch to the end. You probably watch till like, 5 minutes left in the fourth and whatever. Maybe even before that, because, we're talking Sunday night, back to work on Monday for most people. So yeah, it's not the best thing. That was like, as much as we've kind of talked about, superstitions and stuff like that. And maybe the game is set up a certain way to be closer. I expected it to be, closer in the third quarter just to bring more eyeballs back in. And if that makes me a crappy NFL viewer, then it does. I don't really care because I've seen so many games, especially in the regular season, where it's like teams getting the snot kicked out of them, and then boom, now it's a 7-point game out of nowhere. So, we've seen that so many times. So I think it's not great for the NFL to have a blowout in the Super Bowl. It's not often you see it either, though. So, maybe they figure, it's now it looks more unpredictable, right? Because now we had a little bit of a one-sided affair, and it's not good if every game's close, I guess, because then people start wondering how is every game close, right? But it's yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that, if you're not, even as an Eagles fan, in the fourth quarter, I was kind of like on X a lot, just kind of scrolling through. So it was, you knew it was over. So
should the NFL really either somehow, some way have the holiday Monday? Because I mean, it wasn't too late for me. I didn't get into it by any means because I don't care a whole bunch. Just another reason to have a few beers. But should the NFL find a way to either have that game on Saturday, or should there be some kind of a law where there's a holiday on the Monday just so people have a bit of a reprieve? Because February kind of sucks anyways. Like when in January you get the post Christmas blues, and then should there just be some kind of a holiday for the first or second Sunday or Monday in February to say, you know what, you guys can sleep in. But then there's a lot of people who don't watch football. But I mean, if you could come up with some cockamamie holiday, I mean, we got Family Day next week. That was made up in my lifetime. Have a Family Day. Well, every day should be Family Day if you're a good person. But should the NFL think about moving that game to a Saturday night? And what would it hurt on Saturdays?
I think, and it, like Canada, United States, like it's like talking about companies giving people a day off for, like, I'm not gonna say no reason, but like, giving them a day off is like, that's a nightmare, because it's like profit. That's all that matters, really, that these companies look at. They don't care about the average company, I should say, doesn't care about, their fellow employees to a certain degree, in my opinion. So I think, yeah, that's the cold hard truth around it. So
that's the facts of it all.
Them giving a holiday for like a Super Bowl, I think would be like, I'd bet my life savings that'll never, it won't happen in my lifetime. I'd much rather see them move it to a Saturday anyway, though, just because, we talk about it. I think the Saturday, just knowing that, well, for me, I have a weird schedule. I'm off Friday, Saturday, but it's, for a lot of people, with the standard weekend, it's, having that extra day, right? So if you have it on a Saturday night, I mean, you like you like to say, you can get into it a lot harder on a Saturday night and not really, you know what I mean? You're not batting an eye at it, where and we talk about too with the college experience, like having football on Saturday, it just feels different. Even with my weird schedule, like I enjoy just sports on Saturday. Just feels better to me. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just a mental thing, but
yeah, because Sundays Sunday's not like it's Super Bowl or not. You still got to get ready for the work week, and you got to go get groceries, and you got to make sure this is ready and that's ready, and kids or whatever you might got going on. So why not just move to Saturday and make everybody happy? Like, it's just, and then Sundays you got people flying out of New Orleans or whatever, and it's just, I don't know. Is it time that they start talk about, because they have a pretty good role, like they're starting to mix things up a little bit as well, where they're playing these games. But is it time because I heard a lot of negative reviews about New Orleans, about it's time to get out of this place, and just people talk. Is it time the NFL, I understand that the cold weather it hurts the game a little bit, but if there's some domes here and there and everywhere else, should they just find ways to move this game around a little bit to give other people, other fan base a chance to watch it, and then not seeing the same old Arizona, New Orleans, Miami, and Atlanta? Basically, and then they had it in LA a couple years ago, and they gave that one to New York a few years back, and they got really lucky with the weather. Is it time the NFL also just kind of maybe we need to get out of this same old, because it's got to be getting a little bit lame for people who go every year. That's the same old, and then the pregame is, yeah, you're down to French Quarter, right on. You've seen it. I'm 50. I've probably seen it 30 times. No matter what sport, it could be the national championship for college football, or if it's this, or for the Final Four in basketball. It's maybe just change things up a little bit.
Yeah, I'm in support of that. I've been one of those people that doesn't think it's a crazy idea if you shift it to some college stadiums, because you're drawing 100. If you moved it to College Station in Texas A&M, that's 100,000. Michigan, that's 100,000. I have no idea why the NFL hasn't tried that. It's probably a logistical nightmare. That's got to be the only reason, because we know the NFL will do anything to earn a dollar. I mean, they'll do anything for that extra buck. So, I mean, you talk about Penn State, 110,000, Michigan, 112, whatever it is. have these huge venues, right? Like that would be nuts, I think, to have a Super Bowl. I mean, I'm not saying a regular season game or something like that, but a game like this, LSU, like some of those stadiums hold like, a tremendous amount, and the NFL stadiums, I think max are like 70, 80,000. I think Arrowhead's like 80 or whatever, but that's what I mean. Like, why not even take it up a notch and put? I know most of those, outside of the SEC schools, like Alabama's stadium, hold 100,000 as well. If you want to keep it in warm climates, I mean, move it to like one of those type of venues, or, I mean, even if you want to shift it around to a Michigan, a Penn State, where it's a cold weather. I agree with you. I think it's kind of the rinse repeat, and like the Eagles have played in like two that I remember, two, like the Minnesota when they won. That's an indoor field, and then New Orleans is the indoor field. I'm not a big dome guy. I think it takes away from it a little bit. It just doesn't, like, you can't have the planes flying over and everything. Like, it's just, I don't know. I'm not a dome. I don't like dome in baseball either. Like, I don't like that the Rays play well, they won't this year, but it's
this year. Wow.
It's
situation.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think the college, stadium would? They just probably haven't tried it because of money or something, like rights or something like that.
I think, well, it can't be because of it could be because of rights, but and it can't be because of TV production value, because the cameras that they're available to have at most of these places, and the production value for TV, and like you said, Alabama, they're on every Saturday, so I mean, it's not like they don't have instant replay and enough. Like, I don't know why they don't try something different. Is there enough hotels? There has to be. Like, there has to be, because these places, they bring in, like, these college teams, like they bring in not just 100,000 people that watch the game inside the building, but the 20 to 30 to 50,000 tailgating outside. So it's not like there's not enough real estate for all this to happen. And like, I don't understand why they don't try something different. So like I said, the New Orleans thing, that's all right. Yeah, Harry Connick Jr. again, and this guy again, and the French Quarter again, and Brady. It's just the same thing every year. I don't know. I think it's just time for a little bit of a change. Let's get to the halftime show. It's not what we talked about last week here on the morning shift. I'm a 50-year-old white guy from Canada, and it just wasn't my thing. And I'm not. This isn't a political thing at all. Like, it's just not. Like, if I was to have the volume off and just watch it, hey, there's dancing and things and stuff, and all right, well, it's good enough for me. My problem is I didn't know what the heck the guy was saying. Like, that was my problem. So I got, and I still don't. Like, I was going to get some transcripts of what because I've never been a big hip hop rap guy. But that was my biggest problem, Aaron. Like, you're a lot younger than me, but my biggest problem with that whole show was I didn't know what the heck Kendrick Lamar was saying. Right? And that's a Brent thing. Right? That's nobody else's fault. That's just me. What were your thoughts on the halftime show? And keep political bias out of it, but what was your thoughts on it?
See, I'm not like, they're so, like, in my generation, right there, most people like that music, and I do to a certain degree. I'm not a big, it's artist by artist for me in the hip hop game. Like, I've never been huge on Kendrick Lamar. I just, like, when The Weeknd did it, I was okay with that one. That's more like, that's not really hip hop. That's like, R&B style ish,
Something,
yeah, more pop ish, right? But I to be completely honest with you, the people I was, we wanted to go down to the gas station and grab a couple more and get a couple smokes there real quick just for the break. So I didn't see it in its totality. I saw, after the fact, some clips and watched it. It is what I thought it would be, as far as like, it's one of those, like, if I watch it, okay. If I don't see it ever, I could care less. I think, arguably the best thing for the NFL. I know they're trying to, like, this year they'll cater to the younger people with Kendrick Lamar, and then they've had the Who and stuff like that for I think older generations and things like that. But I don't know why they just don't try like a universal, like I'm not even going to say Post Malone doesn't really cater, but something where it's like almost everybody can not have a problem with it would be better. But I'm sure they like the controversy too. They're just trying to, keep people entertained. But from this year's perspective, me personally, just like how you had given your point, I could care less, honestly. I'm not a big Kendrick Lamar fan. I could, whatever. If people are into that's fine. I just not for me either. So yeah. I'm with you there.
I really show my age. Like when I thought by moving closer to the television, I'd hear better. Like, I don't know how that why that would work, but I was like, what the hell? So I'm leaning my head. And I was walking towards the TV in the living room there. I'm like, what the heck? And I just couldn't understand what he was saying. And that's just a 50-year-old white Canadian guy. It's just like I don't know, man. It was weird. That's it. The year's over. Football. That's it. Success for your team for sure. Can they bring it back next year? The way too early prediction, 14-20 morning shift, brutally honest sports. Can they bring it back next year? And what's got to happen for the Eagles to repeat? Because right now they're the best team in football, and there's no argument.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's pretty surreal still. I'm not trying to take it for granted because you never know when you get back. Team's relatively young. I mean, actually, very young. The free agents that are to maybe depart from the team aren't like substantial. I mean, they some good players, sure, but nobody insanely impactful. So I actually think to be completely honest with you, I think they could just because almost all the core would be there. I think re-signing that linebacker Bond that they brought in would be huge. He's a free agent, but outside of that, I mean. Yeah, it's not like the team they assembled in 2017 where they just threw a bunch of guys together for 1-year deals and kind of made it happen. This is a team that should be together for a while, or at least a couple more years. So I think they could. Anything can happen. It's very hard to go back, but I do feel more positive than negative that they could.
The first off, like your buddies who are gearing you a little bit for the Giants or whatever, you just tell them to shut up and punch them in the face. Do it. That's how I would take care of that. But no, it's funny how like people just can't let you just have a minute here and there because it's tough. I mean, and then when you win one, and last question, then we'll get out of here. I should whatever it is I got to do today, but let's say if you could, would you rather? Okay, here it is. Would you rather your Penn State Nittany Lions win a national championship, or the Philadelphia Eagles win a championship, which they did?
Well, if we're talking like right here, right now, since I saw the Eagles won it in 2017, I would rather see Penn State win it just because I haven't seen that, and they've been that as you guys say, like licking the jar. That's all they do. It seems like that's all they ever do. So, I much rather have seen Penn State win it, honestly, just because I've already seen the Eagles win it, but. Now it's definitely like Penn State time though, because it's even if the Eagles like went next year and like you told me, they could lose the Super Bowl, but Penn State will win the national championship. I'll take the national championship. So I'm waiting on that one still, but we'll see.
Is one enough? Like how many years? I talked about this before. Like how if you win a national championship, it gives that franchise or a World Series or a Stanley Cup or an NBA championship. It probably gives that franchise 10 years. 10 years and you can be mediocre, no one's going to care because you can sell Barkley jerseys. Even if you were to retire tomorrow, you can sell Hurts jerseys and Barkley jerseys for at least 10 years. Am I off base on that? Because look at it, like the Cubs, they're coming up on there was 2016, so they're in their 9th year and people are still talking about it, right? I mean, it's a different story because they took 106 years to win one, whatever it was, but does winning a championship forgive all sins for next year or years to come? Like you get that one, people are going to love you forever. They name schools and highways and streets and whatever after you. Is this basically a free pass to be mediocre for a few years? You don't want to be, but can you afford to be?
I think in most cities you could. I think even your, we'll probably start talking about your Yankees here soon in upcoming weeks there. But I think
Pitchers
in a
and
town
catches reported today. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's a great thing. The like New York, right? If you're talking, and I want to say more so Yankees than like Giants and Rangers, etc. But like Yankees, I can almost compare to kind of Philadelphia. Like I think you kind of cut that in half. Like if the Eagles aren't good, or if the Yankees aren't like right on the cusp of being in a World Series or winning one in like 5 years, I think you start turning up the burners a little bit because like cities like that, it's what have you done for me lately? Now, if the Eagles come out and go like 7-10 next year, there's going to be a lot of people, pissed off, but it won't be like, burn the city down. But if they would like 3 years of like under 500 or not even like, going to the playoffs and losing it doesn't take much time for these fan bases to kind of be like, okay, well, what now? Like, it's so I think in most places, like, you talk about the Cubs, they didn't do it for so long, or like the Red Sox, they didn't do it for so long that, that gave them a lot of grace. But like in towns like Philly, New York, where it's like I said, what have you done for me lately? It's you can't fall off the mountaintop for a while, because those fans will humble you quick. And it's I say 3, 4, 5 years. It's like, all right, now what? Like you get a couple years of, but I'm telling you, man, those people will eat you alive. It's even 2 years sometimes. It's like, okay, what the hell's going on? So
I think I think maybe because football people are nuts and they're mad when they get through the turnstiles at the front gate and they're just ready to punch somebody just when they go to watch a game, whatever. But like, I guess it depends on like what sport it is. Like if you go to a baseball game, your seatmate or wherever they're there with a popcorn and a beer and the hot dog or whatever in their hand, and they're hey, how's it going today? Whereas a football fan, they come in, they're just mad about something. Like they're just looking at ruthless aggression or whatever. It's just weird. I don't know. It's crazy. No, congratulations on your team winning, Aaron. That's it's a good feeling. Do you watch the parade?
Not really. Usually it's on a day I work. This time it actually I will be able to, if I'll watch it probably on YouTube at some point. It's not like I'm gonna be waiting. Okay, it's on 10 a.m. I'm there at 10 a.m. I'll catch it after the fact, and if anybody says anything crazy like they usually, somebody will, then I'll definitely see that on Twitter there. So it's not must see TV to me, but it would be cool to go. Maybe I'll find a way to go, but it's just, that's dealing with a lot for, like, you're not watching a game. That's where I'm like, whatever.
I wouldn't open the front curtains if the parade went in front of my house. I whatever. Okay, yeah. Like it's entertaining. Like it's whatever. Like it's fun. What's your take?
Without it. Yeah.
We'll get out of here in half a second. But what's your take on? And every city does it. And every time the championship is won, and every fan base gets all rambunctious. Usually not real fans who wreck things and tear down lights and signs and it's always funny. Like my city, every city does it, and I guess Philly just gets a bad rap for being Philly. But what was like when you see those people starting to wreck shit? It's kind of the same thing as media. Do you go there? Those aren't the real fans. Those are people probably going to wreck stuff to wreck stuff because that's what they do.
Man, that's a little tough for me to defend them there, just because, like I said, I think I compare Eagles fans to Yankees fans when they're hostile, right? Like, I'm not saying every Yankees fan, right? But like, you see clips online and they're just going like ape shit, like just screaming in the camera about the Astros or whatever it might be. But it's like there's definitely a I'm not going to say a huge portion, but there's enough Philly fans that I will believe that will smash things and like it's a rambunctious group. It's not like we're not in the Midwest. You're not talking about a team that's just if they like the Braves fans, they're just there, right? That's it's they're a different breed. So I'm not going to say they don't deserve a bad rep, because I guess they kind of do. Whatever. I mean, it is what it is. If you hate them, they almost thrive off of that too. So they're going to do what they want to do. Nobody's going to stop those people. It's going to be that way to the end of time. So
it is on. It is on. Like I said Aaron, earlier, congratulations on your team winning. And then next week we'll do this again on Tuesday morning. The opening shift 1420 Sports Bar podcast, talking some baseball next week, pitchers and catchers. Things are going to start to get warmer right across the world now, and pitchers and catcher reporting is always a sign of that spring's right around the corner and the snow is going to melt. And it'll snow 3 more times. We'll complain about that, but it's just the way it works. But no, thanks for doing this again, and we'll chat next week.
Yep, thank you. Always a pleasure.
There we go. 1420 Sports Bar Podcast, 4 Beer Sports, talking a whole lot more. Remember, it doesn't matter where you are, it's who you're with. Have a great day, folks. We'll talk to you later.